Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Excited to be back out here in front of you guys for another Friday morning live. So let me know if you guys are in here, and if you're watching the replay as well, that's always nice to know. And today we're going to be talking about the dangers of sunburns and what you can do to prevent, because I feel like it's something we don't really think about until it's too late. So that's what we have going on today. I'm gonna make some tea right in front of you because I thought I was running a little behind, and I was like, I got to make this tea. And then I thought, why not just make it in front of you? Because I wanted to do a little show and tell. Anyway, so before I get into that, I'm just gonna jump on to make sure I'm live on the right page. Good morning, Anna. Good morning. Is that Oh, morning, Mom. Is that default, on your phone? Are you guys watching on your phone? Oh, yeah, there we are. Awesome. Are you guys watching on your phone? Fine. So let me know if you guys are or on a computer. I'm surprised how many people are on their phones, which doesn't mean anything. I just mean I'm usually on my computer, so I'm always surprised how many people are on their phones watching, answering, texting, like whatever. But okay, I'm gonna make some tea this morning. Phone. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys something. I'm gonna do a little show and tell. I did this with our Fit Fam, so I'm gonna show you guys too. This is my Pu'er tea. I'm so, whoa, I'm so excited about this. So this is my Pu'er. So Pu'er tea has tons of health benefits. I started drinking Pu'er tea quite some time ago. So this type of tea is like a cross between. Good morning, Jen. This is a cross between a green tea and a black tea, and it's fermented. So it helps with digestion. And then I read years ago, Tim Ferriss was talking about a study. I don't think he did the study, but he documented the study about how green tea and Pu'er tea has shown to suppress cancer, certain types of cancer cells too. So I thought that was interesting. And I mean, so when it comes to our health, there's four main pillars of our health that everyone's going to deal with at some point in their lives. And I should know them precisely, but I don't. I don't pay attention to that too much. I'm just conscious of what's going on in our bodies and in our health. But diabetes is one of them. Dementia is one of them. Heart disease is one of them. And I know there's another one. At any rate, we all deal with those at some rate. And it'd be a really good idea to look at our health history, like those in our family, what they've dealt with. Because unfortunately, and I'm not one of those people that say, oh, well, my family's had this type of disease or this type of issues, I'm going to get it. That's just how it is. I don't believe in that. I think we can prevent and we can change our destiny. I think we can prevent and make changes in our life. But a good friend of mine just said something about diagnose. It's foolish to diagnose. It's foolish to treat without diagnosis. So I think it's very worth knowing your health history and then working towards prevention, however that looks like for you. At any rate, this is my Pu'er tea I just showed you guys. This is how it comes. I'm a big fan of loose tea. I don't love the bag tea. I'm not quite sure why. I've always just been naturally drawn to loose tea. So this is what it looks like. It comes in like this disc. And then this is what it comes in. This is how they ferment it. Anyway, so I'm gonna break off a piece of that. It kind of looks like chewing tobacco. So you break off a piece of that, and then I'm gonna drop it in my little diffuser ball, and then I went all over, and it's crazy. I tried to find loose green tea like sencha or jasmine green tea, and I couldn't find it. Oh, I grabbed the wrong tea bag. Oh, this is another Pu'er tea. So before I could find this one, I had bags of Pu'er tea because I couldn't find loose. So I'm just going with the Pu'er. So So I usually have I just grabbed the wrong tea bag. So my other tea bag is a green tea bag. So I'm going to drop this in my hot water. Bam. And that's it. So I usually do that for about 3 minutes. Someone remind me in 3 minutes that your tea is done. So what I've been doing is I've been experimenting a bit. I've been doing that for a couple of months now. I think it's really difficult to experiment on anything for a short amount of time. So it's probably been about 4 months that I've been putting. So I put MCT oil C8 in this. It's great for brain function, and then also I lost it. Oh, grass-fed butter, and I've been got a little piece. I dropped a little piece of. I'll just put that in the cup there. Honestly, I'm obsessed with the mind and the brain and brain function, and that's not something that we like specialize in. I don't really like we don't like teach that or sell those types of products right now, but I think the brain is so important, like the mind. I'm obsessed about how the mind works. I've always been. When I was in college, one of my first courses I picked was criminal justice, but it was the psychological end of it. So I actually took psychology and criminal justice. That's what I majored in. And it was so interesting to me how the criminal mind works. Like the frontal, you'll have to excuse my memory, but I believe it was the frontal lobe, and maybe that's the hippocampus. The hippocampus, I think, is actually something to do with exercise. But it was criminals actually have a bigger frontal lobe, and I'm not like saying that that's an excuse for their actions, but that when they did studies on criminals' brains, especially those like really bad types of criminals, not like someone who steals a candy bar, like people that like mass murders or like psychopaths, they had a bigger frontal lobe, which I think is really interesting. At any rate, what I'm saying is that like I'm so really interested in the mind and how it works and the brain and how to keep mental clarity. And one of the things that's one of the reasons why magnesium is really interesting to me, more particularly magnesium threonate, because it's the only magnesium that can break the blood-brain barrier and actually get to your brain and offer those mental clarity, help with mood, anxiety, depression, those things that happen in the brain chemically. And then MCT oil is another one. That one is specifically for your brain function. And those of you that might drink a couple extra glasses of wine. It's the summertime. Maybe we're drinking more alcoholic beverages, beers, whatever it is. The next morning we have brain fog, and the alcohol actually kills our brain cells, which is one of the reasons we kind of removed ourselves. And don't get me wrong, we still, every once in a while, we have a late night and have too many drinks like everyone else. It's very rare. But so mostly it's the odd beer or whatever, like maybe once every couple weeks. I don't know. It's not very often, but one of the reasons was because I think we've all dealt with that brain fog, and I felt like that was really detrimental to our health. Thank you. Got a little notification. 3 minutes. So the thing is, okay, let me finish that sentence. When you drink, you get brain fog and you kill brain cells, and that's very concerning to me. Because as we get older, like I feel like age catches up with all of us. Like that's just the way it is. And again, I'm not one of those people that is like, oh, I'm getting older, I should just expect health ailments to bombard my life. I'm not that type of person. I feel like we can continue to get better and younger and stronger and more and rejuvenate our cells, younger cells and better cells. And so I'm not one of those people that are like, oh, it's just age, I'm getting older. I don't accept that. But there'll come a time as we get older, like I think most of us deal with osteoporosis at some point in time. It's the weakening of our bones. Our bones get smaller and worn out. There's things that we can do, our ligaments and joints as we age. But I also think that we forget about our brain and our brain function. And I want to, like, as I get older, I want to keep having a like continue to have brain function and mental clarity and motivation and memory, cognitive function, like coordination, like that stuff happens in your brain. And I really feel like we forget about that when it comes to health. And it's, at least to me, it's super important. So let me tell you about the tea. So anyways, when it comes to green teas or even fermented teas, people usually ferment them too long. Most people grab like a lower quality, like cheap Lipton type of tea, drop it in, and like, I don't really like tea, which is perfectly fine. If you don't get a really nice tea, you're probably not going to like it. So when it comes to green tea, you have to ferment it for 3 minutes. So the first time I usually run these around twice. I'll have 2 cups in a day, or most times 1 cup in the morning, and that's it. So that's 3 minutes, but then I'll reuse this. Like I'll leave this in the cupboard. Drives Dorothy crazy. But then I'll use it again the next day, and I'll steep it for 4 minutes. So, but if you leave it in too long, it gets bitter. And then if you don't drink this, like if I forget about this and drink it in the afternoon, it'll taste a bit bitter. So there's some tea hacks for you. I actually did a whole show about tea. If you guys are interested in checking that out, you can check out all our past shows on YouTube, youtube.com/trueformlife. Thousands of videos up there. Maybe not thousands, we have over 1,000. But we have Sue jumped in here. Good morning, Sue. And then Anna says, I'm old school. My phone only makes phone calls. I do everything on my laptop. Phone has no Facebook or anything. Gotcha, Anna. I didn't have a phone for a long time. Sounds crazy, right? Like I was the last one of my friends to have a phone. I don't think I even had a phone in high school. And then college, I was the last one of my friends. I didn't know how to text. I actually refused to text for a long time. Like, texting stupid. Why don't you just call? I didn't text. And then I remember I was traveling around. I was in LA. Funny story. I was in LA. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have GPS, and I'd get lost all the time when I first moved there. So I'd always call I did have a phone. I had a phone, but I didn't have GPS. So I had a cell phone, but I didn't have it wasn't a smartphone. It was probably like a flip phone. And then I didn't have any type of GPS. Like you didn't have Google Maps on my phone, or I didn't have any type of thing on any system on my car. So I'd always get lost, and I'd call a couple of my friends. Dave jumps in here once in a while. He's one of them. And Lewis, I would call them and be like, where am I? How do I get here? You should. Okay, what did Anna say? Thanks for the comments, you guys. It's nice to have some conversation going back and forth. I am going to get into sunscreen and protecting yourself. Funny you should say loose tea. Looks like chewing tobacco. Yeah, that's what I said. I had some chewing tobacco days myself. I was making tea yesterday, and my husband watched in shock. Thought I was going to smoke a stogie. What did you have, Anna? What kind of tea were you making? Pu'er tea on its own doesn't taste fantastic. But I think that you can get some really nice tasting teas, like David's tea. I'm a big fan of David's tea. They make really nice tea. But in most cases, I throw my own loose teas together. I didn't know if Dave was in here. What's up, Dave? He said, you know how to get to the beach. Oh my gosh. This one time, Dave and I were driving around. We were in Huntington Beach. And the beach should be pretty easy to find, right? Was it Huntington Beach? No. It was we were at your sister's house, or going to your sister's house or something. So, the beach should be easy to find. In most cases, if you're close, you can see it. But we were driving around in circles for I don't know how long. And Dave couldn't find the beach. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So I just got a little glitch here. I hope everything's working properly. When it comes to sunscreen, I think it's important to understand like there's different types and different qualities of sunscreen. So you know what's crazy to me is that I don't know, like I don't really understand the mindset behind when you're like when you get burnt. When we get a hot day in Alberta, in like everyone's news feed has people like pictures of them being burnt, which is fine. Of course, we can post whatever we want. I just don't understand. Like I don't understand it. Like I'm not sure what we're saying. I think people are like excited they got some sunshine, especially in Alberta. Like we don't get too many hot days, so I think people are like, hey, I got outside, I got some sun, but I see all like these burnt shoulders and burnt legs, and I'm like ouch, like that's not just short term effects on your health, that's long term. And I was reading this study, and it said that the more, I mean, of course, we know those people that have been in the sun their whole life, and their skin looks leathery. Like I don't think there's another way to put it, and I don't mean that to put anyone down. I'm just saying like that's a fact. That's what it looks like if you have too much, if you have a little bit too much sun most of your life, like your skin is like it loses that collagen. It's loose, and you know it's not. I don't think it's super healthy. Like of course we know vitamin D comes from the sun. You know where vitamin D3 comes from? It comes from at least you know from the research that I it's hard it's even hard to it's hard to relay because it doesn't seem real. But when I was doing research about around vitamin D, there's D2 and D2 is plant based and D3 is animal based and it comes from the wool of sheep. Is that interesting? So they have to process it and they have to add to it, and I don't know exactly the chemical reaction of how to get D3, but it's interesting. It's almost a bit troubling, like where because I always want to know where like what the source is because we know that from the sun you get vitamin D. Do we get enough? It depends how much sun exposure you get. But I just thought that was interesting. And then of course it's a bit controversial because we're getting into more vitamins and supplements, and vitamin D is obviously one of them that we're looking into. There's vitamin D2, and it's plant based, and it's a newer type of thing. Most people know D3, and most people don't know either. Or to be honest with you, they just say like when you ask people what supplements they take, they just list the generic ones because they don't know that there's different qualities. There's a reason that they're different prices because they cost more to make the better quality ones. This actually smells like kind of smells like mushrooms, like chaga. You guys have chaga or reishi mushroom tea? That's kind of what that's what it smells like. And it says I was making two teas: blueberry green tea and mango oolong. Oh, nice. That's awesome. I'm not a big fan of oolong teas. Do you like those, Anna? And I don't like the. Oh, I can't think of it now. I don't know. I like the green. I like the green teas, and then like the. So oolong tea is a green. Is it a green tea? No, a black tea. What kind of tea is that, Anna? We actually went to Sri Lanka and it was really interesting. They actually hand how do you say cut the leaves, and I think that the it was the same leaves, and the green tea and the black tea were just they were processed differently. I thought that was really interesting because I would have thought they were different plants, but it was a huge facility and they had this. It was amazing. They had all these layers and people were walking up and down the tea leaf plants and they were chopping them. They cut them and they put them in a bag. It's crazy, like by hand. And tea's really interesting to me. Probably like I'm more interested in the health benefits than anything. Of course, you can get some teas that taste really nice, but I really like the health benefits of tea. And of course, they've been using it in Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine for thousands of years. So to me, it's like, why wouldn't you be interested in it, or why wouldn't you get into it? So I was talking about vitamin D and the sources. The source always interests me. Like, where is it coming from? So we know that going outside and getting sun exposure, you can you get more vitamin D that way. I don't know specifically if you can get enough vitamin D from just sun exposure alone. I would venture to say you could, depending on where you live. Even in Canada, like, like we know that certain places have more sunshine. I think Alberta has the most sunshine in Canada. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So so even if it's cold out, you can still get vitamin D. It's just that when it's cold out, we spend less time inside. This conversation isn't really about vitamin D. It's about the sunshine. So, but what I'm saying is that if you have too much sun exposure, like you can tell when people have too much sun exposure over their lifetime, their elasticity and their collagen is basically warped and worn out. So there's not much there. So I'm paying attention to. But same thing with like if you're smoking, like if you're a smoker, that's the same thing that happens. If you're a heavy drinker, same thing. I guess not much different. Let's see, we have Don jumped in here and Allie jumped in here. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm just talking about the dangers of too much sun, like actually sunburn. Like the more you burn your skin, the more susceptible you are to skin cancer. That's it. Like that's all there is to it. And I feel like in most cases we don't consider the dangers in the future. You know what's funny is like pharmaceuticals, they kind of scare me. To be honest with you, they don't scare me, but they concern me. And like when we're overprescribed pharmaceuticals, there's going to be negative effects without question. And like we know that, like we know research shows that if you're taking pharmaceuticals, there's going to be, so in most cases, and there's some kind of staggering, like 80% of the population is on pharmaceuticals. And then more than that, if you're on one pharmaceutical, the percentage goes up that you're on two. So most of the population is on two, three, four pharmaceuticals. And in most cases, you're taking the third or fourth one for the side effects of the first and second one. And it's so concerning to me to know that. And it may sound funny, but even I don't really like to take Tylenol or Advil because I feel like anytime you have instant results, so we all like have a headache. Like I pop those pills once in a while too. I really prefer not to, but we know what it's like to have like a mind numbing headache that ruins your day. So I'll take some of the pills and I'm like, my gosh. Excuse me. So I think to myself, what is this doing to me long term? Like, and the stronger the pharmaceutical is, the um, the stronger the pharmaceutical is, the more side effects that we can expect. And I just think it's so scary right now with so many people being medicated in different ways and not considering long term. That's one of the reasons I really like our activated charcoal. Honestly, I take it every day, and I take it. And then they take it. If I were to take, and this is, I'm not a doctor, so don't take don't go and do this and say Drew told me to do this. You should check with your doctor. But if I was on a pharmaceutical, or if I ever take an Advil, I take a charcoal with it because the charcoal absorbs the toxins, and there are toxins in pharmaceuticals. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There are chemicals that make the pharmaceuticals that we don't, like, our body shouldn't necessarily have, but they need to add that. They need to add all of them together. That's just my perspective, and I know like it's a whole huge controversial subject, but I just think it's very concerning to know how much pharmaceutical is going on around, especially right now, the side effects that are coming from even. So I remember I had a toothache not too long ago, and they gave me some kind of pharmaceutical that was like I had to go get a prescription for it, and they're like, you probably shouldn't take this during the day because it might make your mind a little off. And then they're like, and what did they say? They said it might make you sleepy or drowsy. And then what else did they say? It was like a Tylenol 3, but there's a different name brand for it. So anyways, I didn't take it. Like I was like, I'm not. And I know everyone's at different pain levels. And if like sometimes you're in so much pain, people are like, I'll take anything, which is fine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying like you have like a super strong pharmaceutical and there's side effects to it. So I went and looked it up, and most of that is digestive issues. So a lot of people that are on pharmaceuticals deal with digestion issues. But that, if you look clearly, like I would research every single ingredient in a pharmaceutical that was given to me. And in most cases that they would say digestive issues. So that's why a large part of our population deals with digestive issues, because many are on pharmaceuticals. But for me, I was like, I don't want to put something in my body that's going to make me sleepy. It's going to make me drowsy. I just talked about how important brain health was to me. So I was like, you know what? I took Advil instead. And I was like, because it's not so strong and because it's more mainstream, it's not so like, could you get addicted to it? Could it cause, like, it's not going to make me drowsy or cause other side effects? But that's just my opinion. That's just what I'm saying there. It's just concerning to me. That's all. I think it's worth bringing up because I feel like a lot of people just take what their doctor says. Like, okay, like you want me to take that? I'll take that. Like no questions asked. I would ask, what are the side effects? What are our alternatives? What are alternatives / what are the other things I could take? What happens if I don't take it? What happens if you don't finish your prescription? Like there's so many questions you could ask, but I feel like in most cases we just show up and we're like, awesome, whatever you got, I'll take. Give it to me. What did Anna say? She says, I really don't know that much about teas yet. Saw a study that oolong benefits for the heart, brain, bone health, metabolism. Yeah, that's what the thing with, and especially women's, yeah, oolong tea is interesting because, and that's one of the things I don't really like about the natural supplement industry. Like you could look at turmeric. We just posted a video on Instagram, I think, or TikTok on turmeric. And it was like, if you look up the benefits of turmeric, it's like 400 different things. And you're like, come on. Like, I'm a natural guy myself. And it's like, you're probably not going to see 25 different benefits from from something. And the same thing with tea. Like, there's probably some, like, I really believe that there's strong properties that are beneficial to tea, for example, or of course to natural supplements, because we're in the natural supplement industry. We've seen the results ourselves, but they list so many different, it's like, I don't know, they should probably specialize in 3 or 4 to make it a bit more realistic, especially for the non-believers, especially for those that don't believe that the tea that they've been using for thousands of years to heal people and cure people aren't going to do anything, right? So I would focus on, but thank you for sharing that, Anna. Thank you for sharing that. There really is tons and tons of benefits of tea. I think that, I don't know. I was studying tea quite. I had like a really strong focus on tea for quite a while, but I can't remember oolong tea. There's another one too. There's tons of different teas out there though. Like I'm really interested. Like there's tons of benefits to the I mentioned the reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom. Tons of health benefits to the mushroom teas, to the fungus. I'm a big green tea fan myself. I don't really like black teas very much. Only thing I use black tea for is in my kombucha when we're making kombucha. And then green tea is my favorite. And then different herbal teas. There's tons of different herbal teas for health benefits. I try to stay away from the black tea because of the caffeine. There is green tea. There is caffeine in green tea, but it's a different type of caffeine, and it doesn't seem to doesn't bother me personally. The black tea is similar to a coffee, and it like makes me feel jittery and uncomfortable. So that's just my personal opinion. But when it comes back to, so we were talking about vitamin D and getting enough vitamin D from the sun, but probably supplementing is a good idea, mostly because people don't spend enough time outside, regardless. Like we're inside at a desk under blue light, no less, and which is also detrimental to our mitochondria and our cells. So that should be of concern to try to get outside and spend more time outside, and then supplementing properly. But when it comes to being outside, specifically in the sun, there's like we know that there's skin cancer out there, that we know that there's detriments to our health, and not just how it looks or how it feels. I talked about that elasticity. But what was that study I was reading? I just posted in our fitness family group. It was about how more like the more you burn your skin, obviously, the more susceptible you are to skin cancer, and that's always concerning. So one of the things that we try to do is in when we're in LA, like it's almost always sunny there, except for June. It's kind of funny. I'm not there in June. I'm kind of like haha because they have this thing called they have a month they call it June gloom, and it's a bit gloomy. Like it's hard to compare it to other places, but most of the time in LA, like there's a lot of sunshine, there's a lot of blue skies. But June, for whatever reason, at least by the beach, maybe Dave, you could back me up here, or I don't know if it's like that inland, but by the beach it's gloomy. And I remember we were one of the first summers we were there in June, and we were there for one of the first times we stayed for a long stretch. We were there for a month, so 2 weeks into June and then 2 weeks into July, and the 2 weeks into June was like Dorothy was all upset. She's like, "Where's the sun?" After like a week of cloudiness, she's like, "Where's the sunshine? I came to the beach for sun." I was like, "Okay, relax." But and then we started to ask around, and they said, "Well, it's June, and it's just usually gloomy here in this month." But then July, August, September, like it's hot and sunny, and which is exactly what happened. But when we're there, we try to do different things to avoid. Is that what it's called? Is that what a marine layer is? I didn't know that. Morning marine layer, because they have that name brand. It's a name brand marine layer. It burns off later in the day, and that's something of interest. And I suppose that's not something that happens here in Alberta, where many of you are watching from. But in LA, there's often like it's like a morning haze, and I guess I never knew that it was called marine layer. But there's almost like a haze often, but not every day. Some days you wake up and it's bright and sunny and you're like, "Oh, it's going to be a hot one today." But often we'll go and get our run out. We'll go get our run or workout in the morning, especially in the summertime, because it gets really hot during the day. And there's almost like this. There's like a haze, or it's almost cloudy, but it's not. It's a marine layer. But that kind of burns off, and then the blue skies come out, and then the sun comes up, and it starts getting hotter and hotter. So that's one of the things that you could consider, those of you that may be more concerned about a sunburn. So it could be gardening, for example. So gardening, actually, we share a garden here with a friend in Didsbury, and getting gardening done when it's not peak time of the how hot it is, for example, like getting your gardening done in the morning or later on in the evening. My gosh, in Alberta, the sun stays up till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. It's crazy. I can only compare it to LA right now. Dave, what time does the sun go down there? In LA, it goes down at around 8:30 maybe. 8:30 might be the latest. But here it's like 10:30, and then, and we go to bed quite early. So the sun's still up. It's a funny experience. But spending those long hours, like if you're gardening, or I know a lot of people like, oh well, it's like 10, like 11 till 3, like that's when the sun is at its hottest peak, and that's when we're like going boating or hanging out at the beach, which is fine. I'm just saying, like, taking precautions when it's hot, when the sun is at its hottest peak, is probably something you may want to consider avoiding, especially if that's skin damage is of concern to you. I feel like it should be concern to all of us. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying never go out in the from 11 to 2, for example, or I think it's really the hottest from noon to 3 or 4. But avoiding it would be a good idea to go spend some time from 10 to 1, let's say, instead of from noon to 4 or from 2 or 3 to 5. Spend your time outside or in this, like if it's hot out, if it's direct sunlight, no shade I'm talking about, spend an hour or two or a half hour, and then you could even slowly increase. It's funny, when we have family that used to go to Hawaii, and they would always go sun tanning. My gosh, stay away from the sun tanning beds. That's another subject. But they would go to the tanning beds before they would go to their trip to Hawaii, which is understandable to a degree, because then you don't get that instant sunburn. But I don't recommend tanning beds. I think that probably does more damage than a sunburn. um, Dave said about 8 or 9 here. What? About 8 or 9 here later than LA. I feel like, yeah. Well, in the summertime, it's like 8:30 in LA. So maybe it's about 9 there. I don't remember. I was there wasn't I there last summer for a little bit? I don't remember when the sun went down. So yeah, I think that's a good tip, and just being conscious of the sunshine and the damage that it can do. But instead of spending your time, so that's what we do. Like when we spend time at the beach, we try not to be out there from noon to 4, like exclusively. And it happens sometimes, but if it does happen, we'll wear sleeves, a hat, and sunglasses if we know we're going to be in the sun for a few hours. Because there's AVP. I'm really hoping it's back this year. It's a pro volleyball tournament, which was obviously canceled last year, along with everything else. But when we go during the day, it's awesome. They set up the stands on the beach, and they give away free samples, and they have announcers and music. It's awesome. And but so if we know we're going to go out there at that particular time, we cover up. We wear hats and sunglasses, and then sunscreen is one of them as well. So though that like Banana Boat brand. So with everything, you have to read the ingredients, and you have to understand, like, though, like, these types of companies that produce a sunscreen, in most cases it's not clean. So you have to go out of your way to find clean ingredients or clean products. You know what's interesting is that if you look at kids brands or baby brands, those are cleaner. And I can never like wrap my head around that. I still don't really understand that. Well, when we have baby food, or yeah, like baby food is like organic and it's clean, and it's like baby food is usually doesn't have tons of, it's like just fruit in a jar, like mashed up. You can go and buy it. But then as we get older, like, I don't know what the adolescence or teen, like as we get older and the kids choose different foods, or we offer the kids different foods, it's like the older we get, the more toxins they have in the food. But it's always interesting to me when I see like baby food, and the parents are like, oh, I'm going to give my kid this baby food, and it's all clean. And then they get a little bit older, and they're like, why don't we try McDonald's? And I'm like, no, don't do that. But if you look at like baby, not just baby lotion, oh my gosh, stay away from baby powder. Did you guys see that Johnson getting sued by? I'm only laughing because it's probably not a subject that people want to talk about right now. It's so controversial, but they're getting sued for a lot of money for their baby powder or talc powder. So like they're morning, Ann. Maybe we talk about a different subject. But when it comes to lotion, like baby lotion, or more particularly sunscreen for babies, that's cleaner. So I'll actually use that. It's not as strong. So you have to look at I'm not sure what's called, PFP or whatever it is. You have to look like the 30 or the 40. I don't really pay much attention to that. I pay attention to the ingredients. So look at the ingredients on the containers. And then there's certain ingredients that we recommend staying away from. Actually, I didn't even mean to plug my book, but this is Detoxify Yourself. And there's a few ingredients here. In chapter 4, it says healing. Chapter 2, it's what's on the outside that counts. So that's page 29. Some of you have this book, and if you don't, you're more than welcome to reach out. So we talk about parabens, mineral oils, fluoride, aluminum chloride. Like, these are in all kinds of different. It's in deodorants, it's in pharmaceuticals, it's in toothpaste. So you have to find those products that don't have these specific ones. But of course, there's more that we should pay attention to. These are just the main ones that I found at the time that I wrote the book. So paying attention to what's in the ingredients. And I really like looking at baby types of, I don't really like to use sunscreen, to be honest with you, because it's really hard to find clean ones. One of the ones we usually use is the Young Living brand. And Dorothy could tell you more about that. Dorothy's a Young Living rep, and we look at all the ingredients for everything that we use, and they have the cleanest ones that we found. which is why she decided to be a rep in the first place, because we were using all their products to begin with. So that was a no-brainer. So the Young Living brand definitely is something that I would use, but I usually stay away from sunscreen and would prefer to cover up with sleeves, or like light sleeves, like light sleeves or a hat or glasses. Not all the time. I'm not talking about like if it's 9, maybe even 10 in the morning, I'm not gonna probably wear sleeves. I'm talking about like actual sun protection if you're going out in the sun. Funny story. I was in Australia and I wore sleeves, and I wore black sleeves at night and then white sleeves in the during the day. And one of the guys came over and he's like, "Why are you wearing sleeves? Aren't you hot?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." He just thought it was because not too many people wore sleeves. It seemed like it would be hotter, but it was actually cooler because it kept the sun from directly penetrating my skin. So, and then of course all that skin damage. There's this one time I was in LA. I don't know if you remember this, Dave, but I used to get these like little bubbles. They're almost like blisters. I don't know what they were called. Like I don't know what the actual medical name for them was, but it was obviously too much sun exposure, and maybe that's when I started wearing sleeves. When I was because we were playing, we played for hours. Like in a baseball game, you'd stand out there for 2.5 hours, and sometimes we would play three or four games on a weekend. So you're basically standing out there all day. So you have to have some type of protection. But I'm not talking about like early in the morning till 10. Like I'm not wearing sleeves all the time. I'm not always in a sweater. If it's hot out or if it's nice out, I like to be in shorts and a t-shirt. Or if it's after 4, usually after 4 p.m. I'm not saying all the time. I'm just saying like it's a good idea. Like sometimes, of course, sometimes we jump in the ocean at 2 p.m. But just pay attention to that sun and how hot it's going to be. Or if you're camping, how much sun exposure you're going to have while you're camping or while you're driving your boats or whatever you guys do on the lakes. I'm obviously not a lake person, but there's a lot of things that we can do. But that's all I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to bring it up, that just bring awareness around like there's serious, not just short term. For me, it's more long term, serious long term health issues. The more our skin gets burnt, the more sun exposure, and I should say the more overexposure. So of course we know that the sun offers tons of benefits, health benefits to us while we're not having overexposed and getting burnt to it. I used to have a friend that she'd always burn her nose. Like all the time. And she'd always be like, "Shoot, I burnt my nose again." And I'm like, what do you think that's going to happen like long term? Like, what do you think is going to happen in 10 years? And like most people think about now, today, this minute, like instant text messages, microwaves, drive-thrus. That's all we think about. But I think when it comes to our health and looking to the future and considering what may come up later on, may be a good idea. Maybe a good idea to be like, what's this going to do to me long term? That's why I'm like, I had that little pharmaceutical conversation of like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like to me, it doesn't matter what it is. It could like, I don't like taking like Advil. Like I'm like, I don't really want to take that because we don't know what's that happen. Like it puts our liver in overdrive. That's why I didn't take that other. I don't even know the name. It started with a T, and I'm like, I've never even heard of this. Why would I take this? So I actually went there. Fortunately, my insurance paid for it. I think it was like a $60 bottle, and I had to pay $5. And I looked at it, and I like morally, I'm like, nah. And I did some research and looked at some of the side effects, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to take that. I'll take something less extreme, less harmful to my body, less side effects on my liver, digestion, and I got by without it. So, regardless, whatever it is you're doing, consider long-term effects. Is what I'm saying, especially right now when it comes to sun exposure, and if you're outside working out, if you're outside enjoying the weather, whatever that looks like, running, boating, gardening. Consider what's happening long term because we all have to deal with that, hopefully, as we get older. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We actually have a new product coming out next week. New product launch coming out next week. I'm so excited. That's going to happen in one of our private groups. So I think most of you are all in all of our other groups. But if you're not, let me know if you're interested in. So we're going to do contests, giveaways, prizes. We're going to give away our biggest cash prize. That's going to be fun. I'll announce that next week. So that's coming up. So if you want more details, let us know. We have some newsletters. If you guys aren't on our newsletters, you're welcome to be. It's never spam. It's always information. So if you're not on our newsletters and want to be, you can, because that information, like those updates, go out in our newsletters. So that's all I have. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning. Thanks for joining me. Hope you consider covering up a little bit when it comes to sun, and spending a little bit less time in those peak hours, especially when that offers a bit more danger. Have a great day, everyone. We'll catch up with you later.